When you choose silence, something powerful starts to happen. Curiosity begins to take over her mind. At first, she might not even notice your absence. Maybe she's used to you texting first, calling to check in, or always making the effort to keep the connection alive. But the moment that stops, her subconscious starts asking questions. Why hasn't he reached out? Is he busy? Is he over me? Did I lose his attention? That uncertainty is what begins to stir emotions she wasn't expecting. It's not about playing games, it's about shifting the energy. Your silence creates a space where she no longer feels in control of the dynamic, and that space becomes a magnet for her thoughts. What makes silence so effective is that it triggers a psychological reaction. People often value what they can't immediately have, and when your attention is no longer freely available, it suddenly becomes something she starts to crave. The calls, the texts, the efforts she took for granted now stand out in her memory. She might scroll through old messages, replay your conversations, or even check your social media just to see if you're active. This curiosity isn't about obsession, it's about her realizing that the energy you once gave her had real value. This curiosity also builds tension, and that tension works in your favor. Every time she wonders why you've gone quiet, every time she debates whether to reach out, that emotional investment grows stronger. The key here is not to break the silence too soon. Many men lose this power by giving in and explaining themselves or trying to remind her of their worth. But silence doesn't need explaining, it speaks for itself. It shows confidence, self respect, and an ability to walk away from situations where you're not valued. And that quiet strength is far more attractive than words. What's even more interesting is how this silence shifts the balance of power. Instead of you wondering what she's thinking or feeling, it's her doing the overthinking now. She starts to question her own actions, her decisions, and even her assumptions about you. Did she misjudge you? Did she underestimate your value? This is where curiosity evolves into a deeper emotional pull because now she's seeking validation, not the other way around. Silence also allows you to reclaim your focus and energy. While she's busy wondering about you, you're busy improving yourself, growing, leveling up, and building a life that naturally draws attention. That energy becomes magnetic because it's authentic. You're no longer seeking her approval, and ironically, that's exactly when she starts seeking yours. This isn't about manipulation, it's about self respect. Silence is a boundary that says, if you can't appreciate my presence, you'll feel my absence. And the longer you stay silent, the deeper that absence is felt. Over time, curiosity turns into realization, and that realization often leads her right back to you, but now with a completely different perspective. And that's when you've truly shifted the dynamic in your favor. Silence has a way of amplifying emotions. And one of the most powerful feelings it creates in her is uncertainty. When you step back and stop chasing, she starts questioning where she truly stands with you. This uncertainty isn't loud or obvious at first, it creeps in slowly. She may brush it off for a day or two, convincing herself that you're just busy, but as time passes, that quiet space you've created starts to echo in her mind. She wonders, why isn't he texting? Why isn't he calling? Did something change? Did I do something wrong? These questions don't just pass through her thoughts, they linger, and with each day of silence, they grow louder. The reason this uncertainty is so powerful is that it forces her to confront emotions she might have been avoiding. Maybe she thought you'd always be there, no matter how she treated you. Maybe she assumed your attention was guaranteed. But when you step back, you challenge that assumption. You show her that you're not afraid to walk away, and suddenly her sense of security starts to slip. Now, this doesn't just make her miss your presence, it makes her rethink her behavior and how much space she's given you in her life. And here's the thing, uncertainty is one of the strongest emotional triggers in human psychology. People are wired to crave clarity. When they don't have it, their minds work overtime to fill in the gaps. And it's what makes your silence so effective. It creates a mystery that her brain is desperate to solve. She might start checking your social media, asking mutual friends about you, or even crafting excuses to reach out just to see how you'll respond. And with every unanswered question, her emotional investment in you grows deeper. But this only works when your silence comes from a place of strength, not bitterness or games. If you're truly focusing on yourself, building your confidence, your goals, your life, your energy naturally shifts. You're no longer that man who chases validation or needs constant reassurance. Instead, you've become someone who is calm, centered, and secure. That shift is powerful because women are drawn to men who are grounded in themselves, men who don't need to explain their worth because it's evident in their actions. What's fascinating is how this emotional uncertainty can make her reevaluate the connection entirely. She may begin to realize how much of her confidence rested on the idea that you were always there, ready to give her attention, ready to make the effort. When that safety net is gone, she feels the void. And in that void, she begins to see your value with a clarity she didn't have before. By staying silent, you're not punishing her. You're simply creating space. Space for her to reflect, space for you to grow. And in that space, the power dynamic shifts. The uncertainty she feels becomes the spark that ignites curiosity, respect, and often a deeper desire to reconnect. Silence has a way of making her realize things she might have overlooked when you were always present. When you step back and stop filling every space with your words, your calls, your texts, she starts to notice what's missing. Not just your presence, but the energy, attention, and stability you brought into her life. At first, she might tell herself it doesn't matter, that your silence doesn't affect her. But as days pass, the absence becomes undeniable. She begins to recognize that the little things you used to do, the way you checked on her, the way you made her laugh, the way you made her feel seen, were far more valuable than she admitted. What makes this realization so profound is that it often happens when she least expects it. She might hear a song that reminds her of you, or she might be scrolling through her phone and stumble across an old message that once made her smile. That quiet space you've created gives her room to feel the difference between what life was like when you were engaging with her and what it feels like now. Suddenly, the silence speaks louder than any words could. It reminds her that attention and effort are gifts, not guarantees. And here's where the shift happens. She starts to see your worth in a way she didn't when she assumed you'd always be there. Human nature has a funny way of valuing what's absent more than what's present, and your silence forces her to reevaluate how she treated your presence. Maybe she took you for granted. Maybe your presence impacted her. Maybe she simply didn't realize how much your presence impacted her. Whatever the case, your quiet withdrawal acts like a mirror reflecting the reality of what she's lost or is at risk of losing. The beauty of this realization is that it doesn't require you to do anything extra. You're not begging, you're not explaining, you're not trying to prove your worth. You're simply allowing her to experience what life feels like without you, and that experience speaks volumes. It makes her understand that your energy, your attention, and your presence are privileges, not something anyone is entitled to without effort or respect. And in that quiet understanding, something shifts within her. She may not admit it right away, and her pride might keep her from saying it out loud, but internally, she begins to acknowledge your value in a way that's hard to ignore. This is where respect starts to grow, because respect is born out of recognizing what someone brings into your life, and silence gives her the clarity to see that. Your silence becomes a teacher, not just to her, but to you as well. It reminds you that true value doesn't need to shout, it doesn't need to chase, it simply exists. And those who truly recognize it will make the effort to keep it close. Silence has a unique power. It creates space, and in that space, emotions grow louder. When you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, and simply let the quiet speak for itself, something shifts inside her. At first, she might not think much of it. She might even convince herself that your silence means nothing. But as time passes, the weight of that quiet begins to settle in. She starts to feel the absence in ways she didn't expect. Your calls that used to brighten her day, your words that offered comfort, your presence that gave her a sense of security. All of it suddenly feels like a void she can't ignore. That's when curiosity and emotion start to mix. She begins to wonder what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and most importantly, whether you've moved on. Silence, unlike words, leaves room for interpretation. And in that space, she starts to reflect on her own behavior. She questions whether she pushed you too far, whether she dismissed your value, or whether she underestimated the strength of your resolve. Without you constantly proving your interest, she has no choice but to confront her own thoughts, and those thoughts often lead to unexpected realizations. The beauty of this process is that your silence forces her to face something many people avoid: accountability. When you were always present, always available, it was easy for her to overlook what you brought into her life. But now the quiet amplifies your absence, and that absence highlights your value. She may even start to notice that others don't feel the space you left behind. Not the same way, not with the same energy, not with the same consistency. And that realization plants a seed of regret that grows with every passing day. This isn't about manipulation. It's about self-respect. Your silence is a way of saying, I know my worth, and I won't beg to prove it. And when someone truly values you, that silence doesn't push them away, it pulls them closer. It makes them want to step up, to match your energy, to show you that they understand what you bring to the table, even if she doesn't reach out right away. Internally, she begins to feel that shift. The quiet becomes a mirror, showing her not only what she's missing, but also what she might lose for good if she doesn't act. And for you, this silence isn't about playing games, it's about choosing peace and dignity over chaos and validation. It's about trusting that your value doesn't decrease just because someone failed to see it in the moment. The longer you remain still, the clearer your worth becomes, not just to her, but to yourself. Because silence isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the strength to let go of what doesn't honor you, and the confidence to know that the right people will always recognize what you bring. Even without you saying a word, what silence truly does over time is create an undeniable sense of contrast. When you are present, always texting back quickly, always initiating plans, always trying to hold everything together, she became accustomed to your energy. She didn't have to question if you were there because you always were. But when you pull back and let the quiet take over, she begins to feel that contrast deeply. It's in the moments when something exciting happens and she wants to share it but realizes you're not there. It's in the nights when the conversations that used to comfort her are now replaced by silence. That shift forces her to confront a reality she didn't expect. Life without you isn't as bright as she thought it would be. This is where the deeper emotional pull begins. Silence has a way of revealing truths that words often hide. She might not have appreciated your presence when it was constant, because familiarity can make people take even the best things for granted. But now, the absence becomes a loud reminder of what you brought into her world: your support, your attention, your unique energy. She starts to feel the emotional void, and that void begins to make her question her choices. Was letting you slip away really the best decision? Did she misread your value, assuming you'd always be there regardless of how she treated you? The longer the silence continues, the deeper these realizations run. She starts to notice the way other people don't compare, not in the way they listen, not in the way they care, not in the way they make her feel seen. It's almost as if your absence magnifies your uniqueness. And here's where the quiet becomes powerful. It's not about anger or revenge. It's about showing without a single word that you won't fight for a space where you're not valued. That strength speaks louder than anything you could have said, because it shows that your worth doesn't rely on her recognition of it. But your worth should rely on, and for her, that's a difficult truth to sit with. People are often most impacted not by what we say, but by what we no longer give. She starts to remember the little things: how you supported her dreams, how you encouraged her during her struggles, how you made her feel important, even on her worst days. Those memories, coupled with the silence, create a powerful sense of loss. It's not just about missing you, it's about realizing that she may have let go of someone rare, someone who truly cared, and that realization cuts deep. Silence, in its purest form, is a form of self respect. It's the quiet confidence that says, I won't chase someone who doesn't see my value. And that quiet confidence is what makes the silence so impactful. It's not meant to punish her, it's meant to protect you. Because the right people, the ones who truly value you, will always feel that silence and eventually find their way back to the sound of your presence. The most powerful thing about staying silent is that it gives you back something you didn't even realize you were losing: your power. When you stop chasing, explaining, or trying to prove your worth, you reclaim control over your energy and your emotions. In that quiet, you begin to rebuild yourself, piece by piece, stronger and more centered than before. At first, it feels strange, maybe even empty, because you were so used to pouring into someone who didn't reciprocate. But as time goes on, you start to recognize the beauty of holding onto your own peace and protecting it from anyone who can't appreciate it. That's when the silence stops being about her and starts being about you. And here's where the shift becomes undeniable. Your silence begins to speak volumes about your growth. You no longer feel the urge to send that text or wait for her to notice you're gone. Instead, you find yourself pouring energy into the things that actually build you up: your goals, your passions, your friendships, and your self-respect. That shift in focus doesn't just help you heal, it also transforms how others see you. The man who doesn't chase, the man who knows his worth, becomes magnetic. Suddenly, you're no longer the one trying to prove something. You're the one others feel they need to earn. For her, this change doesn't go unnoticed. Even if she doesn't say a word, she feels the difference. Where you once gave your time and attention freely, now there's a quiet strength in your absence that she can't ignore. She starts to see you not as someone who is waiting for her approval, but as someone who understands his value and refuses to compromise it. That realization often sparks a mix of emotions: regret, curiosity, even longing, because she starts to recognize that your silence isn't emptiness, it's strength. What makes this transformation so profound is that it flips the dynamic entirely. In the past, you may have felt powerless when she pulled away, believing that her choices defined your worth. But now, in your silence, you show that her choices have no bearing on your sense of self. You've learned to be okay, even happy, without her validation, and that independence is something that commands respect, whether she admits it or not. And the beauty of this is that the silence isn't about manipulation or playing games, it's about alignment. You're no longer available to people who can't see your value, and that quiet boundary creates space for those who truly can. It's a shift that not only deepens your confidence, but also ensures that when you do let someone back into your life, it's because they meet you where you are, not because you chase them down to stay. So in the end, the silence teaches you the most powerful lesson of all. Your worth is never determined by someone else's choices. It's something you carry within you, and once you truly understand that, no one can take it away.